What's happening, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for an advanced look at the Fantastic Four by John Byrne Omnibus. This is the 2022 printing. So, stay tuned. And welcome back, everybody. So, before getting started, a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advanced copy of this book. This book is due out in the direct market and book market on October 25th and 26th, depending on where you get your books. And what we're looking at here is the standard edition cover. I want to make sure you can see that spine there, because on the left-hand side is your direct market cover with a different spine. So Marvel has been doing that from time to time. They've been changing the spines, not just the covers. But for the most part, on all the other Omnis, everything else is identical. Alright, so let's go back to this. So this is the latest printing. This is the third printing of the Fantastic Four by John Byrne Omnibus. Here it is next to my original printing of the FF by Byrne. This is the first printing that came out years ago. Both of them, coincidentally enough, are printed at the same printer, the Donnelly printer. But I think that location has moved to another part of China. Now, the big difference, of course, is the spine. So this is the classic look. This is what actually the second printing looked like this too. Fantastic Four, John Byrne, Volume 1. Here we have the actual logo of the Fantastic Four. That's the actual font they use for the comics. And John Byrne, Volume 1, with that picture there of the four. Again, the picture being different on the direct market. And then the back of the book, almost looking identical here. Font's a little bit different there, and definitely down here on the newer printing. The original printing, $125. The new printing, $125. That's awesome, in case you missed out on it the very first or second time around. So here are the covers of the comics collected in here. And, of course, underneath the dust jacket, this is going to look a lot different because this is the classic look to the Marvel Omnis. This is the way they would look. You know, some people prefer this. Some people are like, oh, that's bland and boring. Me, I didn't have a choice back then. This is all we could get. As far as the new printing, though, we have another piece there by John Byrne. Fantastic Four by Byrne. Looking a little more like this with just the Volume 1 down there. And then the back of the book right there, fighting against the Super Skrulls. So let's go ahead, crack this open. We'll do a little art comparison here in a bit. With this one here, the original printing. But let's crack this open, talk about some of the stories in here. I can't talk about every one of these. I want to, believe me. But talk about some of the highlights and some of the things that John Byrne did. But focusing on the artwork, and then we'll look at the build of the book. But one thing before going into it, remember I said that both of these were printed at the same printer. One thing I didn't point out is that this one here is thicker, but that's because of the binding that they used back then, and also the paper quality that they use instead of the Donnelly printer paper that they're using now. Now let's get this open. So let's talk contents first. Here we have the beginning of John Byrne's. Exactly the same thing that we've had in the previous printing and the very first printing. This is everything that John Byrne did at the beginning of his 5-year run on the Fantastic Four. So the Fantastic Four by John Byrne Omnibus, Volume 1, the writers, of course, he wasn't just the writer at the beginning, he was the penciler. The artists, the inkers, the colorist over here, letters, editors, cover art, variant cover, which he did himself, and the color reconstruction. I'm glad that they're giving those folks credit. Here are the table of contents right there, because doing the color reconstruction takes a lot of work and a lot of time. And the second page to the table of contents. Kicking it off with Marvel Team Up, featuring Spider-Man and the Human Torch, but really featuring the Super Skrull, which leads into the next story arc. But this one here is written by Chris Claremont, and so is the second issue, 62. So this collects both of those, issue 61 and 62 of Marvel Team Up, Marvel 2-in-1 number 50, Fantastic Four 209 to 218, 220 to 221, 232 to 260, Fantastic Four Annual 17, Avengers 233, and Thing number 2. Now, if you're wondering why there are missing gaps here, what's going on there, well, that's because he didn't draw or write those issues. And they do a really good job of giving you like a little bit of a recap as to what's happened. Here's the Marvel 2-in-1, the Thing battle, the Thing, the original looking Thing versus the Rocky Thing that we've grown to love. But let's move on to this. So this is during Marv Wolfman's probably last hurrah in Marvel before he left and won't go over to DC Comics. Marv Wolfman at the time had been writing things like Tomb of Dracula, which is phenomenal, and Fantastic Four, so he was kind of wrapping up his run and using this run to actually wrap up some stories that he introduced in the pages of Nova. So if you heard me talk about Nova, the Omnibus, the classic Nova Richard Rider Omnibus, you'll see some of the stuff collected there because that's what he does. He starts wrapping up those particular plot lines in these issues here. And probably the most interesting thing to come out of this little era, there are a lot, I'm not going to lie, but this one's fun, is the introduction of this little character right there. Herbie the Robot. Humanoid experimental robot B-type integrated electronics. Yeah, that's not what he was. So Herbie the Robot, of course, came from the cartoon because the cartoon didn't use the Human Torch. And I think on my channel I've mentioned before how that story was because they were afraid that kids were going to light themselves on fire. But no, it turns out it was somebody actually told me that it was all due to a contract. Apparently it was something to do with another cartoon or another series. Can't imagine it being Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, though, because that would have been way too early for that. Now, the Fantastic Four are hit by this ray that is making them age in this particular story arc that leads them to get help from Galactus. Remember, in the classic Coming of Galactus, Galactus swore that he would never bother the Earth again. Well, Reed tells him that, okay, we're going to go back on our word because we need your help. We are aging and we're dying. This also introduces us to his new herald, Tyrus, better known as Terrax. Love this guy. I love the character design on him. This is what the Fantastic Four were looking like. Oh man, it's so sad. That's rough. They're looking rough. But this is the Sphinx, a character from Nova, who later on shows up in New Warriors. That's right. He shows up in Forever Yesterday and then the big Sphinx crossover. So that's why everybody needs to go out and buy New Warriors Omnibus Volume 2 when it comes out in November. I said what I said. So more issues here drawn by John Byrne. And the crazy part that not a lot of people talk about is that during this time, he's working on X-Men. During this time, he's working on some classic issues with Chris Claremont. So he leaves the book for a little bit. As of like issue, I think 218, he leaves the book. 219 is drawn by another, I think, was it Bill Sienkiewicz that did it? But then we start getting Bill Mantlo writing these stories by now. Oh, this is where Herbie betrays the team. Yes, Bill Mantlo ends up coming in and starts writing some of these stories. And 219 has a fill-in issue. So he doesn't come back until 220 and 221 and then goes back to focus on X-Men because he was pulling double duty. I'm sure that was a big paycheck for him back then. Or maybe he just liked to drop it. I just can't imagine him doing two series like of this magnitude at the same time. Then he decides to leave X-Men. Damn it. Yes, that run of Austin, Byrne, Claremont. Oh my gosh. Wheezy. Those, oh gosh. That era of X-Men was some of the best comics ever produced. So he leaves to focus on his writing, and I appreciate and respect that. He wanted to, hone his craft and sharpen it, and that's what he does in these pages. Now, I'm going to be honest. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Whenever I'm asked, what are the best runs of the Fantastic Four? My answers are always the same. In chronological order, Mark Waid, John Byrne, Stan Lee, and Kirby. I did almost forget Jack Kirby. And I'm also a fan of Tom DeFalco's run. Big fan. Jonathan Hickman's run. Those are some of my favorite runs. And to me, I think the best entry points for people, maybe not so much DeFalco. I think that's just nostalgia talking. I loved it, though. It was great. Yes, I know about the boob window. Yes, I don't care. It was still great writing. But John Byrne really did a lot to change the characters. Like, what starts off as just a love letter to the Kirby and Lee era, he starts doing some world building that I don't know if he was... I don't think he saw this coming at the beginning, early stages of his writing career. So, I mean, so it's a little bit boring at first, towards the very beginning. There are some interesting stories in here, but by the time you get to about over half of the book, man, you just can't put it down. It's one thing after another coming after the Fantastic Four. One of the things he does is reintroduce the character of Frankie Ray, who was a character that appeared, I think, in around issue 164, 165, introduced by Roy Thomas, who introduced just about everybody. Um, and I'll talk about what he did with Sue Storm here in a little bit. This is the anniversary issue, 20 years of the world's greatest magazine. The first part written and drawn by John Byrne. And this is a really interesting story where they're living in this miniature world. It's like a perfect world made by the puppet master, Alicia Master's stepfather. And Doom, and this is very important to note, gets stuck in this particular world. And there's this wonderful scene where Sue, right here, catches Doom unmasked playing the piano. And she's talking about how beautiful it sounds and what kind of person he must have been before he was disfigured. Now, the other thing that's wonderful about this anniversary is this right here. This is Jack Kirby coming back, not just to the Fantastic Four, to comics in general, because during this time, he had left comics. He had gone and done animation. He was working at Hanna-Barbera, Thundar, and those characters. Yeah, so he came back, and this one here is inked by a bunch of different inkers. So it's not John Byrne inking it. But I gotta talk about another. This is hard to do without talking specifically about every issue. This is what he does to the character of Frankie. He changes her, having like an actual story where she has powers. Like I said, she's been a character that had been around since 160 something, and she comes back, and there's a twist to her background story. I really thought that was really cool. And it wasn't until I read these back issues that I always thought that was part of canon ever since she appeared. But no, she comes back here. This is the other issue I want to talk about. Well, no, there's so many I want to talk about. But this issue right here, the most unexpected guest star of all time. For years, decades at this time, we heard the Thing, Ben Grimm, talk about Aunt Petunia, right? Like he was always talking about Aunt Petunia. So in your head, as you were reading these stories, you always pictured Aunt Petunia to be this older lady, this wise old lady. But no, Aunt Petunia's this smoking young chick. And Johnny, I think, shares our reaction. Aunt Petunia? Like, that's all he keeps thinking. I mean, it's not Bubbles. Aunt Petunia? Wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense. How is this Aunt Petunia? And it's explained in here. That actually is a really good story about a little girl that gains godlike powers for her town. We see a lot of characters appear through here from the Inhumans. Crystal and Quicksilver have Luna here, and because of the mutation in Quicksilver and Luna's Inhuman abilities, apparently Luna was born human. Pretty interesting. There's a lot of mature themes that he starts adding through here. These are great right here. These are adding, or these are setting up the issues that will go all the way to issue 250, which is freaking awesome when Galactus hungers. There is one thing that he did with Frankie that I did not agree with here, but I'm sure most people that have already kicked the Marvel Legends Galactus and have received it, or for those people that have read comics for a while, he does have a herald named Nova, who has flame powers. So if you think about it, you know, you have Terrax, who's Earth, we had Airwalker, and we had Silver Surfer, I guess surfers, surfboards, water, maybe I'm overthinking it. But there is something, the reason why she decides to become a herald I did not agree with. Like, what she says, I thought was messed up. I remember reading this in the Visionaries, so I was a little bit older. I was in my 20s when those were coming out. And reading as a kid, I didn't notice it, but rereading it in the Visionaries, the trade paperbacks that collected his run, I thought that the way she worded why she wanted to become a herald was just messed up, what she replied back to Reed. This right here is one of the best issues, because this is what shows you how much potential the Invisible Woman has. So she goes from Invisible Girl to Invisible Woman. She's being interviewed here by Barbara Walker, not Barbara Walters, of course. But, you know, she's talking about how does it feel to be, you know, the woman on the team, the one with the weakest power, and it really changes the character of Invisible Woman. Like, it makes her realize the potential that she has, so much so that I'm serious, she becomes the strongest member of the team. She becomes the most fleshed out member of the Fantastic Four during John Byrne's run. Yeah, maybe some people would disagree with that, but I really do think so. Because, I mean, by this time, we know that Stan Lee loved the Thing. Everything you can do with the Thing, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby already did. I did like the idea of the Thing reverting back to his muddy looking self, the clay looking thing from the Fantastic Four, because Reed was trying to help him out. And then we have the appearance of this bearded gentleman who has secrets, untapped powers that will eventually come to play maybe during the Heroes Return era. But the Doom stories here are so good. The Galactus stories are so excellent. His Doom is one of the best Dooms. Like, if not the very best. I also like Mark Waid's take on Doom. But he is just pure evil. And I freaking am here for that. Just, you know, we need that. Because sometimes Doom is written like a really nice, misunderstood guy. No! This Doom, with the Doom bots, of course, cracking people's necks and killing people just because they don't listen. That's my type of Doom. So, we have a lot of Inhumans in here. Oh, dude, these are some of the early issues I bought right here. This is actually, I want to say this might have been my first Fantastic Four I went to look for. Because I found it in a back issue bin. And it had Gladiator, who's one of the Imperial Guards. And it was John Byrne drawing Gladiator. And even though, you know, I knew George Paez back then, not a lot of other names stood out, but definitely John Byrne's name stood out. So I had to get this. So this is the big fight against the Gladiator that leads into the big anniversary issue, and that is issue 250, where he gets to draw the X-Men again. And this is a funny fight, too, because like Spider-Man and Captain America are trying to figure out, all right, who exactly are the Skrulls and who are the good guys? I love that, but it was just nice to see him draw X-Men again. Who knows? Maybe one day. Now, the mature theme that he's adding in here, that I haven't talked about yet, is that Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman talk about needing time, you know, to be alone, to be together, to be husband and wife. I think even the Thing jokes about it, and he's going through his own stuff. So this will eventually lead into something, well, that happens in Volume 2. Oh, the Negative Zone issue. And look at Byrne experimenting here with this landscape issue. Love it. By now he was starting to experiment, but then by the time he got into Alpha Flight, he was all about experimenting there. This is such a cool issue. And yes, even in omnibus format, it's easy to read. I love it. Look at the amount of detail on those rocks. This guy was writing and drawing. And then one time during his run on the Fantastic Four, he was also working on the Thing. He was starting to work on Alpha Flight. I don't know how these people did so much back then. So this goes all the way up to issue 260. And I think that is a great that is a great place to stop, because after that we get the addition of another character that will join the Fantastic Four, replacing one of the big main characters. I believe this is the crossover here with the Avengers, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, right here. This is the one that's written by Uncle Raj. Of course it is, because we have Monica Rambeau, his creation there, being Captain Marvel. So yes, that's the story with Fantastic Four and the Avengers. I'm sure when I said look at this, but I think when most people probably think of Byrne's art these days, they probably think of this, just more sketchier look. Because this is kind of the style that he's drawing in these days, whenever he is drawing. Or by the time he got to Next Men, it was a lot more like this, rough, instead of a clear cut finish to it. Gosh, could he draw some ladies. Yes, Annihilus, man. I remember that was the first time he took off his helmet. Because the whole time I thought Annihilus was just wearing, like, that was his face. Apparently, wearing a helmet. This story right here is awesome. This is Galactus is dying, and there's his new Herald Nova. And I felt so bad for Johnny, but you know what? He was better off. There he is, visited by Lady Death. Prepare to do some reading, but not every issue is like this. Not every issue is dialogue heavy. This, I believe, is the first appearance of the new Skrull leader, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is the Legacy issue right here, which is part of the annual. And anytime you see Doom, man, you were in for a treat, because there's some great storytelling. There's Terrax, Doom, and then the final issues. Now, all the way in the back here are some extras. See, I didn't talk about every issue. I talked about most of these. Because, I mean, there's just so much good stuff in here. I did talk about what he did with Sue, making her the most powerful leader, a strong female role. He probably borrowed heavily from his buddy Claremont over on X-Men, seeing how he treated the ladies over there, making them the most powerful one, the leaders. Reed, he kind of makes it to this guy that has to sacrifice his time with his family in order to make the world a better place. So he's got all the troubles of the world. Johnny, honestly, I like his take on Johnny. Johnny's not this hothead, like, womanizer, that funny guy that you've seen and probably interpreted in movies mostly. He's a lot more toned down in this. Like, he really is about finding somebody and falling in love with them and eventually tying the knot. That's what he was about during this run. That's why he's so heartbroken whenever Frankie leaves him. So I like that aspect of that take on Johnny. The Thing, like I said, I think he had already been fleshed out, even though he's made of rock. Ha! Dad joke. By this point, but I think he still has a lot of fun with it. The whole idea behind, okay, if I revert back to human, I don't think Alicia would, sorry, my daughter's name's Alicia. I don't think Alicia would love me anymore. I think she's attracted to me because of my rock. I mean, that question comes to play a lot through here. My rock body. Let me finish that statement, damn it. All right, let's take a look at the binding, and then we'll do a little bit comparison with the first printing. Oh yeah, give me that big eye, baby. Look at that. That is an eye. Look at that tail ribbon too. Nice. Or that tail band, sorry. This book has almost 1,100 pages. It is 1,096 pages. Printed at the Donley printer. Sewn binding. Let's take a look and compare it to the original printing. And the very first thing I want to do is compare to the paper stock. And honestly, the paper is almost just as thick as this. This has a different finish on it, the glossy finish to it. It's a little bit more slicker than this is. But what I noticed, and it's just vaguely noticeable, is the colors are more vibrant here in the new printing than they are here. Keep in mind, this is the original printing. So we are talking 2011, 2022 when these books were printed. And yeah, the blues stand out a little bit more here than they do here. The yellows are a little more vibrant here. Not very much, just a dash, if you will. And what I wanted to show was this right here. Gosh, the amount of details, I swear. And I'll put the original one up there at the top. So just the way that it lays over. I think the new printing lays over better. But again, the colors look better to me in the new printing. Coming back to this, look at all that detail. You know, the one thing I didn't talk about was the spread pages in here. Or the machinery. Kirby was known for his machinery. But, you know, Byrne ain't too shabby either, just saying. Yeah, this is up there amongst the very best of the Fantastic Four. Strong character arcs and just wonderful new characters that are added. And just, man, what ends up happening in the second volume that starts here. My goodness, heartbreaking. But that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you already have this, if this is your first time reading it, if you're upgrading to this version, if you've missed out on volume 2 and you plan on picking it up. I would love to know all those comments. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications to let you know when our videos are going live. We are on Spreadshop and Patreon. Amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. And more importantly, all of you stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.